In this video, we're going to work with the new @FocusState property wrapper for SwiftUI introduced in iOS 15. And we're going to use this to improve the UX of our keyboard so you can just navigate through our account view form pretty easily by just tapping the next button on the keyboard. So here I am in the account view, and again, just continuing on from the previous video. So the first thing I want to have is @FocusState private var, and I will call this focused text field. Because we have more than one text field, right? We have our first name, last name, and email. So I need to keep track of whichever one is focused. And what I mean by focused is which one they're tapped into, where their cursor's at, and what the keyboard is, inputting to. So focused text field, I need to keep track of that. You might think, oh, this is going to be a text field, but no, I need to create an enum to help me keep track of that. So I'll do that real quick down here. So enum, we'll say form text field, and that will be a case of first name, last name, email, right? Those are just our text fields. So now our focus text field is of type form text field. And you're gonna see how we utilize that in a second. If you're a little confused, hopefully it'll all make sense at the end. And as always, I go back and explain things so they do make sense. Oh, I'm sorry, this needs to be an optional because I don't want to give it a value because nothing is focused in the beginning. They gotta actually tap something to be focused. So that will be an optional. And another reason, because when we make it nil, that will dismiss the keyboard. Again, you'll see that in play later. So let's use this enum. So on each text field, right, we have first name text field, last name text field, email. So on each one, I can set like what their focused means. So I can do .focused, and you can see I get this parameter that has equals in it, where I can like give it a value. So focused, see it takes a binding to a focus state, which our focus state is up here on line 13. So I need a binding to @focused text field. So if I do $focused text field, there's my binding, and then equals is whichever enum case I have here. So I want this to equal, and it's got to be hashable, which our enums are hashable by default. So this is going to be first name. So basically what I'm saying is when this text field is focused, the focused text field equals .first name. Is essentially what that says. Cool, so I'm gonna copy this modifier because we have to tell our other text fields like, hey, when you're focused, what does it mean is essentially what I'm saying. So .focus, focused text field, except our last name text field, I'm gonna put some space in between to make it easier to see. So our last name text field, the focus equals last name. And the reason we're doing this, just to get a little bit ahead of myself, is because we need to change the focus manually when the user hits the next button. And this is how we know what to focus next. So now email focused equals email. Okay, so now that our text fields know what they're focused, when we hit on submit, we need to change that focus. Now, what is on submit? Okay, let me run the app and I'll show you what I'm talking about here. Maybe should have done this in the beginning to explain it, but this should clear things up. So when I have the keyboard open, and if on your simulator, your keyboard doesn't show up, do a Command K. So see this return button in the lower right? This is what happens when on submit fires off. What I want to do is, one, I want to change this instead of saying return, I want it to say next. We'll get to that in a second. But on submit is what fires off when this happens. So what I want to happen on submit is it to just go to the next text field. Again, we're improving the user experience of using our form. So I don't have to keep tapping each one. They hit next, they go to the next text field. Right now when they hit return, the keyboard dismisses, they have to type in last name and the keyboard goes up and down. So you're gonna see it's gonna be a much smoother user experience. So we'll stop that. So back to on submit. So focused, I wanna do on submit. So now what I wanna do is change the focused text field, right? So I want the focused text field after first name to be last name, right? We wanna go down the form. So focused text field equals .last name, right? I want it to be this next one. And I'm gonna make this one line. Again, code style. You do you. If you don't like that, that's fine. But I'm going to copy this line because when we tap on submit on last name, I want that to go to email, right? The next one on the list. Now, the interesting thing, email is the last one on the list. So what do I want to happen on the last name? Well, if they hit next, I want the keyboard to dismiss. Because again, if we look at our form, go to account, right? They go first name, last name, email, and then now they're on the birthday. There's no thing. So if they hit return here, I actually wanted to dismiss the keyboard. Well, all right, I already got some code in there messing with it. I wanted to dismiss the keyboard there. So that's why I want focus text field to be equal to nil, and that will dismiss the keyboard when they're done. Okay, so now you saw that was that return button down there. Well, I can change that label. So that's just called the submit label. So .submit label. and do dot. You can see you can't like set it to anything. So you have to be return, continue, done, go, join. You've probably seen these in keyboards a lot. Next, route, search. So you would name this whatever is most relevant to what you're doing. So on first name, I want this to be next. And then on last name, I also want that to be next, right? And then email's a little different, right? Because that's when we get to the end of the form. Instead of next, because there is no text field for them to go to, I want this to just say dot continue, right? Continue with the form. So now when I do this, we should have this basic functionality working, right? So account. So look, I'm in the the first name text field. Look, my button says next. When I tap next, the keyboard doesn't go away. I don't have to tap the last name. I go right into last name. Cool. Then I hit next, go right into email. And then now you see my button change to continue because there's no other like text field to go to. There is no next text field. So when I hit continue, it just dismisses and I can go to birthday and all that stuff. So again, a much better user experience. Now, we need to add one little thing to our user experience to really make it nice, and that is dismissing the keyboard. Because right now, when I'm in first name, like I can't dismiss the keyboard. I used to hit return to dismiss the keyboard. Now it's like, wait, how do I dismiss it? I got to go next, continue. So we want to add an accessory view on top of our keyboard to dismiss it manually should they do that. And again, all we're doing here is just improving the user experience of our form. So we'll stop running this. Now we want to do this for our entire form. Like anytime a keyboard pops up on our form, which is only in these first three text fields, we want to have this accessory view. It's a toolbar that you can put on the keyboard. So here in our form here, so I want to make sure I have I'll do some code folding. I need to get better at doing this. Okay, so here's my form modifiers. So below the navigation title, I want to do a .toolbar, and then now I'm going to unfold this. I always like to just fold it to make sure I'm on the right curly brace, but now that I know I'm there, let's update our toolbar. We'll need a toolbar item group, and then you see that takes an initializer of placement, and placement is the key new feature here. Again, this is new in iOS 15. So the placement, I'll do dot, well, you're not going to give me the autocomplete. There you go. Bottom bar. There's a whole bunch of different places you can put it, right? Depending on how you want to use it. We want to put it on our keyboard. So this will put a toolbar that's always on top of our keyboard, right? So that's what that is. And then the content is a simple button. So we'll do button, and then I don't want to like style this or anything like that. I guess you probably could. I haven't experimented with that. Maybe you can experiment with that. But I just want a basic title and action, right? So the title I want is dismiss, and then the action is I want to dismiss the keyboard. Do you remember how we dismiss the keyboard? Back up to our focus state. All we do is set our focus state to nil, right? Just like we did on the on submit for email, and that will dismiss the keyboard. So that is just focus text field, not focus state, equals nil. And again, like I said, I'm going to put this on one line. I just like the way that looks better. So now you're going to see a toolbar on top of our keyboard anytime it pops up. When we tap the dismiss button, we're going to set the focus text field to nil, which dismisses the keyboard. Okay, test it out. Back to our account. Okay, so Sean pops up. There's our dismiss button. So I can type, I can go to next, but let's say I don't want to go to next. I just want to dismiss. Boom, keyboard dismisses. I'm in email, dismiss. I'm in last name, dismiss. And again, I can go through the form just by hitting next down here in the lower right, next, then when I get to email, continue, dismiss. Again, we just made our form less annoying to deal with. And I'm sure many of you have filled out very annoying forms before in the past. So anything you can do to make this user experience a little more pleasant by making it convenient and easy to fly through a form, you definitely want to do that. And hopefully you learned a little bit on how to do that with the new in iOS 15s, things like on submit, submit label, the keyboard accessory view, all that stuff.